Hello there and welcome to today's edition of The Tipping Point. I suppose it's been a while since you and I had these conversations, and the year's rolling. It is the dawn of a new decade, and countries and individuals are planning what to do for the next 10 years, some for 5 years, some probably just for a few days. Some do no planning at all. But this is the interesting thing about economics and the way the world works. You have to be able to anticipate the future. Otherwise, a lot of things are going to hit you in the course of your journey that most certainly you weren't prepared for. For the past couple of years, we've been talking about Cameroon's 2035 ambitions. That sets us in about another 15 years from now. That would be happening just mid of the next decade. But we have this current decade to be able to effectively plan what happens ahead. On today's edition of The Tipping Point, we are going to be exploring some of the ways that companies and institutions anticipate the trends that would come from the future. How prepped are you for what Africa is going to be facing next? The scramble for Africa is on. This time around, it's not for territory and not for hinterland. This time around, it's for business. And the unfortunate thing is this scramble may go and Africans themselves may not be ready, or they are not poised to reap from the benefits of what this scramble will bring. New businesses are happening. Africa is the new frontier for where business happens. Trade deals are struck across the continent every day. What are you doing? Only recently, I had a conversation with someone and we were talking about the ECO that is replacing the CFA franc. And someone says, nah, that doesn't concern us. Well, in one way or the other, CEMAC is going to go in the same way that the WAMO countries have gone. But are we prepared for these changes? My guest on today's edition of the program has built several companies. He sat on platforms for several conferences, speaks on platforms on several boards, and he has this foresight, this knowledge, and a wealth of experience. I am literally just thrilled thinking about the conversation that we're going to have on today's edition of the program. So fasten your seatbelts. It's not going to be a roller coaster ride, but it's going to be an interesting conversation. We'll see you when we come back after this break. Don't go away. And you're welcome back. My guest for today, if you Google him, I started Googling him, and the moment you write his first name, every other thing shows. It's the first thing that shows on Google search. And Mr. Bako Ambianda, welcome to the show. And I must say, so when I was Googling you, and when I did that, so I expected you would come around, you know how Google does that thing, and then you were on the top notch. So I was talking to the person who introduced us, and then they said you were Cameroonian. Okay. I got that right, correct? Right? Yeah. So these are the places where I'm fascinated. You sit on the board. I mean, your resume is over 12 pages long, PDF document. And to be honest, I was impressed reading every one of them. And this is my first question to you, being so young and with such a wealth of experience. Don't you intimidate yourself? I mean, when you look in the mirror and you go, oh, I did all this and I'm Cameroonian, how does that make you feel?
I think they say, but first, thank you very much for having me on the show.
You're welcome.
I think they say you become the average of the 5 people you hang around with. So I think a lot of times I don't get intimidated by myself at all, because in my orbit, the network of people that we have drive to create impact on the continent, a lot of them even motivate me to do more.
That's interesting. When you look back at Cameroon and what the future holds for this country, you are into investment and you've invested in about 5 different sectors across Africa, span across 5 different countries. When you look at Cameroon, what excites you most about this new decade? And by extension, Africa, what is the thing that you would from 2020 to 2030 most likely be putting a huge chunk of your investment capital into?
Well, as you said, we have businesses in 5 different countries, but we have operations in North America, in Asia, Middle East, and in Africa. What I see a lot as the biggest potential in Cameroon are our people, the youth. You know, one of the greatest resources that Africa has are the youth. Our youths are they're anxious, they have the drive, they want to do something for themselves, but just a lot of time the environment is not conducive for them. So I think we need to be able to invest in our people, and we are going to see a lot of development coming out from there.
So let's talk a little about Bako Group. That's the company that you're chairman and CEO of. Just give us a little context. What is it that you do, the expansion of your entire portfolio? Just brief details.
So the Bako Group, which means the Bako Corporation Group of companies, it's a 8 years old company, and I started it when I was in school back in the United States. We are a holding company with 6 subsidiary companies operating in manufacturing, agriculture, renewable energy, construction, and exhibition. We are known a lot of time for our exhibition arm, which is the ATIGS Group. We put on some of the biggest Africa global centric event in the world, and I spend a lot of my time now trying to drive foreign direct investment in Africa, cultivate and push for intra-Africa trade, international trade, and enhance economic development in Africa. So our slogan is committed to development, and we are just doing what we love to be part of the progress and the opportunity that Africa has to offer.
You've been named one of the most influential people of African descent under 40. And when you talk about driving investment in Africa, and you say the greatest potential that Cameroon has is the people, I totally agree with that. And we have the youngest under 30 population in the world, or the largest, I beg your pardon, under 30 population in the world. And you have these young entrepreneurs and people who are trying every day to build something. And each time I have conversations with these people, sometimes they say their greatest hindrance or obstacle to development is capital. And I wonder, because we don't have the infrastructure that makes it easy for capital to leave from funders to the average person, to the startups that need it. In your experience, what has been that thing that has broken the barrier, or the barrier each time you have faced it and say, okay, this is a startup, or these are a group of young people who need funding, who need investment. It can't reach them because of this and that reason. The reasons for why investments are limited in Africa are just many. What have been some of those challenges, and how have you been able to navigate them to build the kind of impact that you have thus far?
I think when you look into Africa is very diverse, 54 countries. If you look at some of the cities, when I was in the US, I was based in Austin, Texas, which is one of the highest startup scene area in the whole of US, following by Boston. But what you tend to see in those areas where startups are having a lot of finance, it's not because first of the lack of the finance, it's first the platform. When you look into a country like Cameroon, there are not a lot of platforms that kind of like embodies and push for startups. You know, our startups here don't have the infrastructure they need, because first you need to have the platform. There needs to be the political will that supports the people to create and unleash their full potentials. Then after the platform, now we are talking about the money, because when you look around the world, it's not about the lack of capital. There's a lot of money out there. The access is how bankable some of those projects and businesses that those startups have, and how are they doing to attract the money. Because when I travel around the world and I go to some investment events, you'll be amazed on how much is available to be pumped into the continent. But there is that gap that needs to be filled between the money and the projects. And the projects also needs to be tied into like the infrastructure and the entrepreneur itself. You know, a lot of times investors don't only put money based on your project, they put it on the entrepreneur himself, the individual himself. And I see that problem a lot in Cameroon.
And how do we begin to fix that problem? Because it is persistent. You talk to an entrepreneur, sometimes they get the opportunity to get funding, a few couple million francs CFA, or maybe dollars or anything, and then the next day they want to buy a Ferrari. So, and then the investors go, sorry, you're not the kind of person we want to invest in. And let me ask that question in twofold. When you take maverick or maverickal personalities, say Elon Musk, that kind of a person who goes, okay, these are the rules, I'm not going to live by them, but he's still able to cut through and be able to attract investment. And then you come to Africa and we say, these are the rules, we are unable to live by them, and we are unable consequently to attract investment. How do we balance those differences such that you can have entrepreneurs in Cameroon easily access the capital that is available to them?
The first thing you need to know about entrepreneurship is you need to have the bounce back ability. Entrepreneurship is about you can fall from a plane, but by the time you land, you have built a parachute to take you back up. I can tell you a lot of startups in Africa that have raised millions upon dollars, and now we are seeing a lot of startups from Nigeria and Kenya raising billions of dollars at Silicon Valley. What are they doing differently? The whole aspect first is change your mentality, change your strategy, and be there where the money is. You know, let's talk about don't focus on the now, focus on the 5 years and the 6 years, and be where the money is. A lot of entrepreneurs think that money is going to come to them. No, you have to go to the money. And when I come to some Cameroonians entrepreneur, I see what they lack also is going outside of their comfort zone, I would say. You have to go outside of their comfort zone. You know, Elon Musk and some of the big entrepreneurs in the US did not get their funding from the US. Some of their funding came from maybe France, from some other big, things like that. You know, I work with a lot with entrepreneurs that are doing great things in Africa, and their funding is from Asia. How did they do? You need to position yourself, you need to talk to the right people, you need to spend some time. Right now, we are all connected on different platforms. I'll say maybe LinkedIn.
Yeah.
How many times are you spending time there just to build your network first? And then create a relationship. It's very important. You have to create a relationship with people who have access. And then those people, when they see you and they believe in you, they are going to bring you the money. But a lot of times here, people just keep working on a project. You can work on a project, but if you don't create those relationships and build a strategy, you're probably not going to achieve what you're trying to get, especially in the startup that is about just the money.
Now, I have a problem, especially in terms of how our startups are built. In my mind, I think we have a sort of a copycat tendency. So most of the innovations that we have are not exactly new. There are systems that have been working in other places, and we're trying to replicate them in the Cameroon and in the Africa context. And ever so often, we forget to do the tweaks of maybe understanding what is particular about our context. If you take, for example, the WeWork a case study. WeWork grew so fast and is almost falling as fast as it grew. And you have startups in Africa that are beginning to follow the exact model of WeWork, and not just their business model, even of their CEO, Newman. Now, what does Africa need to do? Do we need to break away from the circle of saying, okay, let the West go where they're going to. This is Africa. We carve our own niche and we follow it. Or what we need most is to be able to say, if we're trailing the West, this is what we have to do different for the African context to be able to thrive.
Do you know how to make money in Africa? Find a problem, solve a problem.
Okay.
That's the most easiest way to make money in Africa. And our challenges are our opportunities in Africa.
Okay.
The challenges that we face are our opportunities. Go to the US, you see the same thing. People replicate, but they tweak. You know, I happen to follow the story a lot about WeWork and all of that, and it's one of the business that is actually growing right now in terms of like co-working space, incubators, accelerators. But it really depends on how are you doing to channel and offer the right services to the entrepreneur in those areas. If you go to Nigeria too, they are doing a lot. I used to have a friend of mine that was running a program that is an accelerator, but they take their entrepreneurs, they go out, they find funding, they come and take their entrepreneurs to like China or Silicon Valley. So they take their entrepreneurs where there's money. Now, if you come and build something like WeWork in Cameroon, you should be able, as the entrepreneur building WeWork here in Cameroon, you should be able to have services that will allow you to fund some of those entrepreneurs to go out and get their mind to expand their mind. If you take a field trip to some entrepreneurial areas in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Ethiopia, in South Africa, you have a better idea on how to come and do stuff in Cameroon. So I would say it's not bad to replicate, but what matters is you need to be able to solve a problem that is within that context in that country.
Interestingly, for me, I'm a Bible person, and one of the things the Bible says is a prophet is not accepted in his hometown. Now, you are organizing the ATIX conference. ATIX is Africa Trade and Investment Global Summit. The 2020, it's a biennial conference, so it holds once every 2 years.
Correct.
So the next edition is holding this year in Dubai.
Correct.
And you're going to probably be the third person I'm asking this question on this platform. What is it about trade summits and investments that we take them away from Cameroon when we know, of course, the money will not come from here. We don't have that much money, but we have Cameroonians here who need to have access to that kind of capital. Why was it, or what is the context? What propels you to say, okay, we're going to do the first edition in the USA, the next edition in Dubai, and then Cameroonians go, we want some of that. How do you get us in on that pie?
ATIGS is a BINIA platform. In 2018, we had an amazing success story with over 2,300 delegates and about 192 quality investors. Our next edition will be in Dubai during the World Expo, which is going to be one of the largest events in the whole world. What we focus to do is to bring project developers, investors, government officials, and businesses under one room for strategic engagements, collaborations, and to sign deals. Now, we go specifically to some areas that are conducive for global delegations. In 2018, we had delegates from over 70 countries. In 2020, we are going to have delegations from over 90 countries. Myself being a Cameroonian, you know, I don't look at myself as a Cameroonian. I look at myself as a global citizen. And I just believe that first we need to attract the money and then bring it to Africa. ATIGS is going to come to Africa in 2028. After we have done the forum in Dubai, in China, in Belgium, and then we bring it to Africa. It's one of the largest African global centric event in the world that has achieved what we are doing. So we are very proud of what we are doing in that area. And a lot of times when people with projects, not just regular projects, even in countries like Cameroon, bankable projects that are ripe for investors, we like to have them in the platform. It is not a talk shop where we go and just talk about countries and doing business. It's a deal making and business platform where we focus on what is the deal, what country is it, how conducive is it, and do you have all the feasibility study X, Y, Z? Can we bring our investors there? So even after our event, we lead a lot of trade missions and investment missions in various African countries. I just finished doing a tour in 2019 with a couple of investors that are putting in a lot of money in Africa. So for Cameroon, I think businesses that are ready for investment, looking for strategic partnerships, they want to expand their businesses to gain more visibility. ATIGS is the right platform, and like they always say, the taste is in the pudding. You can take a look at some of our success stories. It's on the web, it's on our website, and it is an amazing platform, and we're excited to double our achievements that we are going to be driving for in 2020. From 2,300 delegations, we are looking to have more than 5,000 delegates in 2020 and have double the number of investors that we are bringing.
That's actually quite interesting and exciting. And when I hear you say you're going to bring the conference to Africa in 2028,
yes,
and then that tells me how long-term you plan. And that brings me to my next question. We have 95% of our business fabric built on the backs of SMEs in Cameroon. and you wouldn't find, I can't get the exact statistics, whether it was 12 or 15% of them who can give you a 5-year plan. And yet we expect that we can grow exponentially. How important has planning been to you as a person and to the corporations that you have been able to run?
The first is in 2013, I started an economic concept and philosophy called Afro-Developism, contributing in economic development and social progress in Africa. And in the context of Afro-Developism, what I try to explain to people is, if you want to succeed really big time in Africa, you need to have a long-term plan. You know, Africa is not a get-rich-quick continent. You need to have a long-term strategy and a long-term plan. And when you look at businesses like the Dangote Group, and you go to the international war and you look at some of the multinational companies, they don't only have a short-term plan, they have 10 years plan, they have 20 years plan, and you need to follow with a strategy, because we are going through a creative destruction. 5 years ago, some of the jobs that used to pay are no longer at this time right now. And in the next 2 years, things are going to change. So you need to focus with a long-term plan, and then you walk ahead of it. So for myself personally, I have a background in project management, civil engineering also as well. And in civil engineer, before you have a tower built, the most important thing is the foundation.
Yeah.
Once you have a foundation, then you can put up a tower. But if you pay attention to that, you cannot start building a tower without having a plan and even a blueprint.
Yeah.
So even in our life and in our businesses, we are going to do well when we have a long-term vision and a long-term plan. So you can always change the plan along the way, but you don't change the vision and the goal. And that is why even ATIGS today, when I launched the program in 2015, we had a strategy on how we are going to move it in different continents. And even my businesses that I do, we have our focus on economic development sectors. How can we drive foreign direct investment in Africa? How can we contribute to social progress? So everything that we do ties towards that my economic philosophy, Afro-Developism.
I'm pretty sure lots of small businesses or entrepreneurs have come to you and go, Mr. Bako, we have this nice idea, but I don't have a plan. I'm passionate about it. Say I'm an engineer. I was born with it. It's inborn. I'm a journalist. You give me a microphone any day and then I light up. So I want to be the next Richard Quest, Steve Harvey, what have you? And then you say, do you have a plan? And I go, no, I just told you that's my plan. That's my passion. That's all that I have. Is that bankable? And because what happens in this scenario where I genuinely can't do one, and yet I am that passionate and good at what I do?
You know, it's very important to have that first thing, passion. You know, a lot of time it is important to find something you love to do and find how people can pay you to do what you love. So it's very important to first have that passion. And sometimes when I talk to young entrepreneurs, myself, I'm a young entrepreneur, and I just put back myself 8 years ago, I was like them. You know, this guy just fresh out of just coming. I came to the US at that time. I was in the US in 2011, and I know with the milieu of my friends, when I tell them what I wanted to do, everybody laughs. So I always tell my entrepreneurs, if people don't laugh about your dreams, no, it's too small. You need to scale it up. So, but when you have that passion and that thing that you want to do, the first thing is to actually see it. We have two eyes, our mind eye and our eyesight. So once you can see it in your mind, you can actually achieve it. Now you just need to be around the right people. That's why mentorship is important. That's why environment is important. That's why platforms are important. For you to be around the people who are either doing what you want to do or they are doing what you are doing. So they can help you where you don't have the strength. It's very important. You know, started my career in Maryland, and I realized after 2 years that the environment was not conducive for me. Not that it was not good, but what I was doing was not the best. So I went to the environment that was conducive for me. I had friends that were doing what I was doing, and that has helped me. So it's a similar thing. When entrepreneurs come to me and I find that passion and that drive, what I do also is just instill in them the aspect of action. You know, without vision, the people perish, as a biblical man. But when you have something in your mind, you need to put it down. You write it down, you read it. And once you start reading it, once it becomes in your mind, they say once a man mind has been expanded with an idea or concept, it can never goes back to its origin. So when you keep reading your goals, one day you are going to hold yourself accountable that you want to do it. And until you are sick of being sick and tired, you never have that drive that nobody can stop you.
You're an author, you're a public speaker, and I was looking through one of your photos and I saw you with Les Brown. I like Les Brown as well. And that makes, and you're a business person. I think talking to business people, I always find that there is this conflict between the businessman and the author. Because when you're a businessman, you talk in terms of action, figures and statistics and this. When an author, you're trying to be philosophical and try to see how you can incorporate the ideas or let everybody fit into the scope that you're trying to bring. So I think I want to ask you my most toughest question for today.
Okay.
This is Cameroon.
Yeah.
We all have the data, we have the statistics that we need in this country.
Yeah.
So let's take you to your author voice.
Yeah.
And what can you say to, I don't know if it's enough for 2 minutes for you to say something that would be able to make us wake up from slumber and be able to live our truest potential. But if there was anyone who was watching you right now, what would you say to Cameroonians? Knowing the wealth of potential that you know we have, knowing what Africa can be and should be and is not, what would you say to get everyone watching you now to say, okay, I got a dream, I can live it?
Very good point. I think there was a question that was asked to a wise man that what is the wealthiest place in the whole world? And he expected to be naming, is it a diamond mines, things like that. And he says it's in the graveyard. Because in the graveyard, you have a lot of people that have died with their potentials never unleashed. The first book I wrote, which was a best-selling, was Unlocking Your Potential, destined to win in the game of life. And I really believe that if it was easy for a lot of people to live their dream, they were going to live their dream. So if you have something that is burning into you, ask yourself that how can you live full and die empty? When you leave this world today, you want to live with the things that you were created to do. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. First, you need to first understand and ask yourself today that what comes to you easy, that comes to other people hard. And when you have that burning passion, start asking yourself, if today was the last day, if you leave this world, are you going to be happy? And until you find that drive within, you are never going to go out there and do it all. But whatever is your potential that you are willing to do, you need to understand that if someone else have done it, you can do it. What's really stopping you? Read biographies of people. You mentioned Les Brown. You know about the Les Brown story. And myself, when I started my career, also coming also from like Africa, we have a different kind of mindset and a different mentality. So I had to first get in the midst of like that passion, and people like Les Brown helped me a lot to first have that drive. And I believe that entrepreneurs in Cameroon need to also have that backbone, because the truth about the matter is that entrepreneurship is not easy. There are always going to be challenges. But what is that thing that is going to hold you when you are going down, when everything, they call it that the worst giving moment in entrepreneurship? You need to be able to have that passion. And sometimes a lot of entrepreneurs go back to like their PowerPoint. What is their drive? And somebody like me, I go back into like my inspirational and motivational beginnings, and I tend to understand that whatever I'm doing had a purpose. And I just feel like that's what some entrepreneurs can try to ask themselves.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bako Ambianda. It's been awesome having you. I trust that our listeners, our viewers, would have grabbed a thing or two. You can check him online. Your profile, just Google Bako. You can see the way the name is spelled, right? So just check him out, and I'm sure they can send you friend requests and stuff.
No problem. We're on our website, and they can follow me on LinkedIn. On Instagram.
I read quite some interesting articles on LinkedIn.
No problem. Yeah, we are on LinkedIn, and I'm on Instagram as well, and also on our website to follow our activities or what we are doing.
And if you're in Cameroon, you want to make it, try to be a part of the ATICS conference that's coming up in Dubai. I'm sure if you follow him, you get the details of all of that, okay? And it's been fun having you. I don't know the next time we're going to do this, but we'll do it soon enough, okay? And don't ask me where I've been all this while. It's well, I'm around. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention. I've been Richard Atem-Ojong. We've had Mr. Bako Ambianda with us. We want to say a big shout out to all our technicians who have helped us. And until some other time, see ya. Bye-bye.